So for the last few months I've been travelling around Europe, to Germany mainly, in Dresden, Czech Republic, and seeing that they've created a safe environment for people to show resistance to what's happening. Currently our political leaders and our European leaders are working against the interests of the people with the current refugee influx, which is a migrant invasion. And we wanted to replicate that in the UK, very different to how the English Defence League used to do things. We've specifically chosen where we will protest, in the city of Birmingham. We've specifically chosen to be away from any Muslim community, away from any city centre. We're very isolated where we're going. We don't want trouble, we don't want confrontation. I've been trying to find a leadership team, or look for a leadership team, or people who are willing to step forward and speak on these issues. I've known Paul for a long time, I've known Anne-Marie for a long time, and this is about creating a leadership team that are willing to work for the future and create an environment where people can come and show their opposition to what's happening in a peaceful and passive way. There will be no alcohol on demonstrations, there will be no face coverings, none of the chants that you heard with the English Defence League. This is about creating an environment where families and ordinary people who are opposed to what's happening can come and join us. As we saw, a lot of people would have seen UKIP as a solution to their problems when they receive 4 million votes and get one politician. The political process in this country with one past the post is not an option, so there has to be a passive resistance. The refugee influx of 1 million people into Germany this year, that's just the start of the next 5 years, of what we're going to see over the next 5 years. So this is about today introducing Paul Weston and Anne-Marie as a leadership team of PEGIDA and moving forward with our demonstration on the 6th of February. And now I'll hand you over to Paul to introduce himself.
Okay, well, nice to meet all of you. I've been asked to take over as PEGIDA leader, and PEGIDA is necessary in this country because at the moment the political process is not representing the people of this country. We've got 60-something% of people are very concerned about mass immigration and about Islam, particularly the Islamic side of it. David Cameron will do nothing about it. UKIP, I don't think, are really fully on the ball over it. So we need to have, aside from the political process, we need to have an organisation which is actually going to put some thought into the politicians today who are more frightened of Islam than they are more frightened of people who are resisting it. And until that changes, the government of this country is going to continue to capitulate before Islam, and it's going to have to come down to us, and it shouldn't be down to us to have to do this. We should not be doing the politicians' jobs for them, which we have to do at the moment, which is simply to raise attention, to raise the genuine fears of people in this country who not only fear about where we are now, but what the future is going to be like, and what the future will be like for their children and their grandchildren. And PEGIDA UK is going to be a start in raising awareness, and like Tommy was saying just now, to make it something that is possible for Middle England to follow, and for us to finally voice our concerns and make those concerns heard by the political elites who currently are doing nothing to resist probably the greatest threat that this country faces in the 21st century.
I'm here for two major reasons. I have two enormous concerns, and I know that they're concerns shared by vast numbers of people in this country. The backbone of democracy is freedom of speech. It is hugely under threat. The fact that I assume Tommy and Paul, have had death threats over what I've said about Islam, the fact that our politicians are petrified to speak about it, and the fact that there have been more criminal prosecutions in this country for so-called Islamophobic speech, just speech, than there have for FGM, for mutilating little girls, really tells me all I need to know about this situation. And as well as freedom of speech, the safety and freedom of women in both the long term and the short term are hugely, hugely threatened. When we open the borders, common sense should tell us that when we open the borders to countries in which women are treated as property, to be beaten and abused, to countries where women are stoned to death for adultery, thrown into prison for leaving a violent marriage, You cannot open the border to those countries without a moment's consideration as to what that will mean for the safety and freedom of European women. We have not considered that, we are not considering it, and I want to see a movement of ordinary, decent British people peacefully taking to the streets to protest that we are worried about this, we have every reason to be worried about this, and we're utilising our democratic rights to say so, because our leaders are not doing it.
And then now, we faced problems in the early days with the English Defence League as a nationalistic organisation where people didn't know what we stood for or what we were about. So we had people trying to align themselves and attach themselves to our organisation. 6 years on, everyone now knows where I stand on many issues. I don't think we're going to face those same problems, because any genuine far-right organisations in this country hate me. I'm known as a Zionist and a race traitor because I actually am not opposed to black people, I'm not opposed to immigrants in say, I'm opposed to Islam as a fascist ideology. So I don't think we're going to face those same problems, and if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask any of the people here, then feel free to do so.
Hi, I'm Athol Head from Sky News. My question really is that are you not repeating the same mistakes that the EDL and other parties make by assuming that all Muslims want Sharia law, want the Islamification of the UK, whereas most actually will say the reason they came to this country is because they want to live under British values and enjoy freedom of speech and democracy and the things that characterise this country? Okay,
I didn't say most Muslims want Sharia law. I think a lot of people have a lot to say about what Donald Trump said in America about stopping Islamic immigration. The reason he said that was because 20% of American Muslims said they believe they can enforce Sharia law with violence. 51% of American Muslims said they want Sharia law. 37% of British Muslims said they want Sharia law. Now, if we have 4 million Muslims currently in this country, that's what nearly 1.3 million Muslims who want Sharia law. That is a problem. What we're saying is, with uncontrolled immigration, and we already face enough problems away from this refugee influx, in Britain, with Islamic ghettos, with radical groups, with 360 terrorists arrested this year, with again, we've just exported another jihadi John onto the world scene. We face enough problems anyway. This is not an anti-Muslim group, okay? We're not an anti-Muslim group. I know many great Muslims. We feel Muslims are victims of Islam. And what we wish to oppose and have an open discussion on is the effects Islam have. We have so many people who have encouraged multiculturalism, but as soon as you try to scratch beneath the surface to see what one of these communities believe or feel, you'll prevent it from doing so. And that's what we want a free and open discussion on. And on Christmas Eve this year, across the country, tens of thousands of Muslims marched for their prophet, the Prophet Muhammad. Now, morally and ethically, I think he's a terrible man. Yeah? We didn't oppose that march, we didn't attack them trying to have their march, we allowed that community to have their say. Yeah? The same with after the Charlie Hebdo massacre. We're going to the city of Birmingham. In Birmingham, after Charlie Hebdo massacre, 30,000 Muslims marched demanding blasphemy laws. Not against the killers, they marched demanding the law that the killers went to enforce. So we want to be left alone in Birmingham. We've chose to not specifically go near Muslim communities. We've chose to stay very isolated, and we just want to have a peaceful protest.
Can I address both of you as well? Because I know Paul spoke to Sky News recently, and you spoke also about the fact that we could be a majority Muslim country by 2050 or 2060, and that we could see the majority of the electorate voting for Sharia law. I mean, those of you who expressed Sky News, what do you say to my question? And I'd like to hear from Anne-Marie.
Well, I think that that is a huge problem in the future, simply because of the way the demographics are going, that we could, in 2050, 2060, elect a Muslim Prime Minister who did want Sharia law. And I think one of the things, when you talk about a lot of Muslims don't want Sharia law, there are a lot of moderate Muslims, but the moderate Muslims at the moment are too frightened to speak because they are living in Muslim communities and they daren't raise their voice. So until the moderate Muslim majority, which they still are, have a voice, then we will have to be the voice for them until they get over their well-founded fears of talking out themselves.
I mean, wanting Sharia law is not the only problem. If you sat down and said to people, do you want Sharia law, a large number would say no. But then ask them whether or not they want to draw in Muhammad cartoons to be a criminal offence. I believe Channel 4 told us a few years ago that 78% of British Muslims said it should be. So just answering in the affirmative to do you want Sharia law is not the only problem. And it's certainly not the only problem when it comes to the treatment of women. We have vast thousands, tens of thousands of girls suffering FGM in this country. We have forced marriage, we have child marriage, we have Sharia councils. This treatment of women is utterly appalling and completely incompatible with a democratic, free society. So an answer to the question, do you want Sharia law, is not the whole story. We shouldn't be basing our arguments upon it.
And is this making it easier for those moderate Muslim voices that you mentioned to speak out? Because many of them are British people, I mean, they're here to stay.
Say, I left the English Defence League 2 years ago. So anyone who throws the accusation, well, you're going to be making the problem worse. I left the English Defence League street protest scene 2 years ago. In the last 2 years, we've seen the exposure of the Rotherham scandal, which confirmed everything we've been saying. We've seen the Trojan horse school plot. We've seen the Charlie Hebdo attack. We've seen the Paris attack. It's nothing to do with what people are saying. If we just sit back, it continues to happen and happen and happen. So by us speaking like this and saying, is it going to encourage people? Look, when you're talking about Muslim immigration, is that going to encourage terrorism? Homosexuals were prevented from entering America for decades. They didn't execute people or blow things up. There's 16 countries now, Muslim countries, that Jews from Israel are not allowed to enter. They're not attacking them or blowing things up or suicide bombing. So this is a matter of, these problems have to be raised. I wish, as I'm sure Paul and Anne-Marie do, because all we're going to get is flack from this, there's nothing positive for us from this. I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish I could be at home on the 6th of February with my wife and children. But if I do that and we sit back and we ignore it, then we're doing what everybody else is doing. And right now, someone has to say something, and I wish our political leaders were doing it, because they're the ones who get paid to do it. They're the ones that have the security to do it, because we face it. We face attacks. We face imminent threats, even today. So yeah, there is no other option but to do this, and it's about now. This is going to happen anyway. People are going to take to the streets anyway in the coming years. It's about trying to create a safe as possible environment where people feel free to do so. People feel that they're not going to lose their careers or their jobs by coming out and standing on the street. And all we're asking of people, we're not asking people to go to prison, we're not asking people to fight. We're asking people to stand in silence, in unity, in solidarity with us and with other European citizens across Europe who feel our culture, our way of life and our country is at risk.
I mean, and also, again, just to add to that, we have, this question of aren't we making it worse? Well, how much worse can it get? We have bent over backwards for decades to accommodate hate-preaching imams. We have done nothing about these horrible crimes towards women. We've restricted our own speech. We have continually spouted Islam is a religion of peace. It's got nothing to do with Islam after every atrocity. What more are we supposed to do? And no matter how much accommodation and bending over backwards we do, the attacks keep coming and they keep getting worse. We are not the cause of this. We are not the cause of this. We are not spreading hate. We are responding to hate. We are standing up to it. And it's really time that was clearly argued.
And if anyone else has any other questions? If not, then literally this is us just showing the leadership for British people who are watching this, for English people, for the people in the city of Birmingham. This is for them to see we're getting organised, we're dedicated, we're disciplined, and come and join us if you're opposed to what's currently happening in our country. Is that down there, a question?
Oh yeah, the reaction to PEGIDA across Europe has been quite mixed. In Czechoslovakia, the president shared a statement. However, in Germany, Angela Merkel has said that PEGIDA have hate in their hearts. Recently, you have written about how the government has specifically intervened to stop your movements and your campaigning. How do you think the British government will react to the PEGIDA movement in this country, closer to Czechoslovakia or closer to Germany?
Closer to Germany, the government will. Yeah. Not the people though, because our government are in Saudi petrol dollar pay pockets. Okay. Everything they're doing right now, everything that's going on in our country is against the wills and the interests of the British public. And that's reality. So I know what I faced for the last 6 years with police persecution and state persecution, simply for exercising my freedom of speech. And the simple reason, the only reason I can come down to is that rather than tackle all the things we were talking about, the grooming gangs, the sexual abuse, the non-arrests of FGM, basically we're asking the police to enforce the laws that are already there. Yeah? Rather than do that, the easiest thing was to shut us up, to silence us. But I think we've broke that barrier, we've broke through that barrier. The slandering and calling us racist is just so far from where we're at. So, I despise racism, so I despise Nazism. So opposing an ideology, this whole tag, which the Czech president, when he came and spoke at the rally we was at, the Czech Prime Minister, he said we can't call people who are opposed to Islam fascists, we can't call them extremists, because opposing Islam, if I oppose Scientology, no one will call me an extremist or a fascist. I'm opposing a way of thinking and an ideology. That way of thinking is fascist towards us. And I think that the British politicians, but that will change as the masses support the movement. As the masses support the movement, which they're doing in Germany, in the east of Germany especially, you've now seen Pegida. We're having this demonstration on the 6th of February. This is the first of a set of European-wide demonstrations. In France, they're demonstrating in six towns. They're demonstrating across the whole of Europe. Holland, it's going on across Europe. And this is the start. And that's all we're saying is we want to be able to do it, and we don't want the usual slanderous lies coming from the media, calling us far right, calling us extremists, because we're not. We're genuine concerned people.